Good morning, all souls, here and everywhere. I am Program Minister, Reverend Dr. Nicole Kirk, and the chancel this morning. I have our Senior Minister, the Reverend Dr. Marlin Lavanhar, and Affiliate Minister, Reverend Gerald Davis, and online, Assistant Minister, Reverend Randy Lewis. We are so excited to have you join us for worship this morning. A special welcome to our online viewers and Everywhere members. We have a special treat today because some of our Everywhere members are here today. Yes. I've been enjoying meeting them, and so also to all of our folks online, everywhere in the world. We are so glad you are here. And if we look a little tired this morning, for those here in Tulsa, we were awakened at 4 a.m. during a massive thunderstorm and a tornado warning, and we have these sirens that try to wake us up. It doesn't wake up everyone, I hear. Some of you slept through it, but others I know sustained some damage. So we are here, we are together, we're supporting one another, but it was a rough late morning. If you're on Facebook or Zoom, your prayer requests, your joys and sorrows, please put them in the chat so we can light candles and hold space for you here in the sanctuary during that time in our service. And if you are a first-time guest or newish to All Souls, we welcome you. But if you're a first-time guest, our ushers are coming down the aisles because we have a gift for you. And as they come down the aisle, just raise your hand so they will know that you're a newcomer, and keep up your hand until you receive your gift. All right, you see some gifts going out today. Welcome, welcome. And so we want to also invite you, if you're new, to come on to the Sonnen Library after worship. You go out those back doors to the left and across the foyer. And in there, in the library, we have light refreshments. We have welcoming souls. We have people to answer your questions. We want to get to know you. And if you're on Zoom, please stay afterwards for conversation immediately after the service. I now invite you to rise in body or spirit as Reverend Davis comes forward for our invocation and covenant.
Good morning, church. Good morning. This is indeed a day that God has made. Let us then rejoice in it and be glad. And let us count our many blessings. We are grateful for the capacity to see, hear, feel, and understand. We are grateful for the incredible gift of life, and we are especially grateful for the ties of love, which bind us together, giving dignity, meaning, worth, and joy to all our days. Please join me in our covenant. Love is the spirit of this church, and service is its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Welcome to All Souls, where we love beyond belief. From all
Now, before you take your seats, let's take this moment to greet one another while our chalice lighter comes forward. We have some great energy. Great energy. That's right. Well, I hope we keep this energy going during the coffee hour. What a great, great feeling this morning. Our chalice lighter this morning is Christy Emeg, a leader and member of Action, Allied Communities of Tulsa Inspiring Neighborhoods. Yeah.
Thank you. Good morning. We light this chalice as Unitarian Universalists who believe democracy is more than a political system. It is a shared journey, a collective responsibility, and a profound act of faith in one another. May we walk this path with grace, with purpose, and with phenomenal commitment to the common good.
Good morning. I'm Shannon Boston, your religious educator, and I have a story for you today called Ixmukane's Gift. Sit back, relax, envision this story in your mind's eye. Lisa felt very alone in the world. Her mother needed to learn new things at a college far, far away, and her father had to work long hours. She had no brothers or sisters to play with or to talk to, and she tended to keep her thoughts to herself. But Esmeralda, the woman who looked after her, noticed how quiet Lisa had become and how sad. One night, hours after tucking Lisa into bed, Esmeralda went to check on her and found she was wide awake and looking troubled. "What's wrong, precious girl?" Esmeralda asked as she turned on the lamp by her bed. But Lisa did not respond. Esmeralda sat on the edge of the bed and said, "Sometimes, when we have a lot of worries or emotions, it's hard to talk about them with other people. Sometimes it's difficult to find the right words to help others understand, so we just don't say anything at all." And Esmeralda took a woven bag out of her pocket and opened it up so that Lisa could see what was inside. And in there were tiny little dolls dressed in bright colored threads and materials. And Esmeralda said, "These are worry dolls." "Do you play with them?" asked Lisa. "No, they have a much more important purpose. Let me tell you their story." Long ago, there lived a princess named Ixmukane, and she was the daughter of the great Mayan sun god, the God who warms the earth and brings light to all. And when she was born, the sun god gave her 3 gifts: the ability to see into the souls of others, the strength to carry the worries of the world, and the wisdom of a sharp mind to solve its problems. And as the years went by, the princess grew kinder and stronger and wiser, and all the people of the world loved her. And one day, the princess heard a young boy crying, and gently as she could be, she asked, "Why are you crying, little one?" And the boy refused to answer. And Ixmukane thought for a moment, and she asked, "What if instead of speaking out loud, what if you whispered in my ear?" And the child replied, "But princess, it's too heavy a burden for me to share with anyone." And the princess looked directly into the child's eyes and she said, "Did you know that my father, the sun god, gifted me with the strength to carry the world's problems? I am very strong. I know that some problems are very hard to share, that some involve other people that we might be afraid of, That sometimes we might feel embarrassed or ashamed. Sometimes we can't control the problem and we feel powerless. Sometimes the problems are secrets that should not be kept, but get stuck in our throats and are hard to say out loud. But I am strong enough to bear them all. So the boy whispered his problem into Ixmukane's ear, and when he was done, she looked at the child and with compassion said, "Cry no more, little one. I will carry this worry for you so that you might feel at peace and rest easy when you go to sleep tonight." And the little boy immediately felt the crushing weight of his problem begin to lift, and that night he did sleep peacefully, just as Ixmukane had promised. And the boy, the next day, ran to thank Ixmukane for her gift, and in exchange, she gave him a worry doll and said if he ever felt that he had a problem, a sadness, a worry, all he had to do was whisper it to the doll. And in doing this, the doll would take on the burden of the worry, just as the princess had done, and the child might find peace and sleep soundly through the night. Word spread quickly of the generosity of the princess and the worry doll, and others approached the princess and whispered in her ear, and they were gifted their own worry doll to bring them comfort. And having found her purpose in life, Ixmukane traveled the world, seeking to help those who were weighed down with sad and fearful thoughts, secrets that needed to be told, or problems that needed to be solved. Everywhere she went, she left colorful woven dolls to be slipped under the pillows to hold worries of the world. And Esmeralda handed one of the little worry dolls from the woven sack to Lisa and said, "This is for you. When you have a worry that is making you sad or afraid, whisper it to this worry doll and put it under your pillow. Let it hold that worry for you so that you can sleep well." And that night, Lisa did just that and fell sound asleep. I invite our children and youth to come to class where we can share our favorite ways for dealing with stress. And everyone may pick out their own worry doll, and adults are welcome to get their worry dolls from the bowls in the back of the sanctuary following the service.
That beautiful story comes from a Mayan Indian mythology and tradition of the worry dolls. And Shannon, our lovely, beloved Shannon, took that mythology and wrote that story for our kids today and for all of us, which we need. So beautiful job. And November is a time when we celebrate Native Americans and the indigenous peoples of this land. And so throughout the month, we'll be looking for ways to do that and uplift that. And we'll have a special speaker here on November 16th from the Osage community who's going to be, from the Creek community who's going to be speaking with us. I'm looking forward to that. Now, All Souls, you may know, has been expanding its reach all over the country and even all over the world. We started having virtual members probably a decade or so ago when we started to be able to live stream on the internet. And then we eventually developed it as more and more people started joining to our All Souls Everywhere program, and we have All Souls Everywhere members all over the United States and even in other countries. We have right now, I think, somewhere around 180 people who have joined the church as members from outside of Oklahoma and some from around Oklahoma, and who are far enough away not to be able to come every Sunday morning. And they support our congregation, and they did so in a big way. I'm going to introduce a few of them who are with us from the four corners of the United States today a little bit later in the service. But right now I want to introduce Pauline Farmer to come forward. She's one of our original members. She's with us from Maryland, Annapolis, Maryland. So come on forward, Pauline. She's going to share with us a little bit about why she, even though she lives 2,000 miles away, supports All Souls and has been supporting it for years. And Pauline was here to support our gala. She was the one who got all the auction items together for our live auction and just did such a great job for us last night. So thank you for being here. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Good morning. Yes, as Marlin said, I'm Pauline Farmer. I live in Annapolis, Maryland today, and I consider myself an OG Everywhere member because whenever it started, which was more than 10 years ago, I joined. So it was great to meet even more of you at the gala last night. This, by the way, is my third time in Tulsa. So I grew up atheist and agnostic between my two parents. But my great-grandfather, was a Lutheran minister, but a very progressive one for his time. So this is a Lutheran minister in the Netherlands in the 20s and 30s. And he was once asked by a parishioner, "Is there a heaven?" And his response was, "I don't know. No one's ever sent me a postcard." So I think he would be comfortable in our congregation here. My journey as a UU began in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is a congregation a lot like Tulsa. It's very large and diverse in people and thought. Then I moved to San Francisco, and I couldn't find a similar type of congregation in San Francisco. And so then somewhere along the way, I had heard about All Souls, and I found them online, and I found how I could attend the services. And the other great thing about being an Everywhere member means that, when I moved to the East Coast, I didn't have to change congregations. And the service was no longer at 8 a.m. my time. So, I started attending the services, but the online experience, even before COVID, was more than just, watching services. I remember attending a Zoom where Barbara Pose talked to the people, and we had, it was a conversation, not just a presentation, about when she did the walk at the Way of St. James. So I've been able to be involved and feel a part of the congregation like I did in Ann Arbor. This is my second year helping out with the gala, and I'm a member of the stewardship committee. Giving away the offering plate is a very important part of actually living and walking our talk of love beyond belief. But that means the pledges need to fund the operation of the church. And that operation includes all of the AV and personnel and time for the ability for others not physically here to truly feel part and take part in our programs and services. So it's not just the Everywhere, but also the ASL interpreters that we've had to make it more accessible in that way as well. So for all of that, I have renewed my pledge. I have increased it, and I ask for all of you online, here, Europe, United States, wherever you are, join me in doing the same.
Thank you, Pauline. It's so great to have you with us this morning and the others who we'll introduce a little bit later. Just know that we have had people's pledge letters and pledge cards in Emerson Hall throughout the last few weeks. They are now being sent to, if you did not pick it up, it's being sent to your home. There are some generic ones in the pew backs. If you want to fill one out today, there's a link for online. You can do it online, whether you're here or not, whether you get your letter or not. But we're hoping that people will do that in the next couple of weeks. Before Thanksgiving, we want to have all the pledges in if we can so that we can set a realistic budget for 2025. We've got some exciting plans for 2025. Of course, who knows what this next week and this next year is going to bring, but All Souls is going to be here, and we're going to do great things with your help. So thank you for all the generosity to our community.
In moments like this, in times of joy and sorrow, we are reminded of the interconnectedness of all things. Let us cherish the support we find here, knowing that the shared burdens become lighter and shared joys become brighter within our circles of care and compassion. This morning, we are lighting candles for our dear members, Mark and Lucy Conley, who were in a car accident this week. May they feel our love and light as Mark recovers from broken bones. We light a candle for those who were impacted by the storms last night, some without power, some with damage, tree limbs on their homes and other damage. We light a candle for our election, and that we have the resources we need to support this democracy, to vote, and to be at peace. This morning, lighting a candle of celebration for our gala, which was a fabulous time together last night, and raising money for our justice teams and for the church. Lighting a candle for Lacey Marcuccia, prayer for all those affected by the tornadoes this morning. Now I invite you to name aloud someone you wish to include in this sacred moment.
Carla.
Lighting candles for these names spoken. And acknowledging the names that go unspoken yet remain in our hearts. And this morning, if you have lost a loved one in this past year, or this Sunday is the closest anniversary to the death of your loved one, we invite you now to stand as you are able and share this moment of silence before our prayer.
You may be seated. Hear now this prayer. O gracious God, Spirit of life and love, we are together, interconnected from here and there and everywhere, united in the common bond of love. Gracious God, in this place right here, we are filled with a lot of distress, stress, and happiness. We are about to move into this place of decision. And so many of us who have decided know that it is not just that, but there are consequences. Gracious God, we are praying this morning that all of us who know that it is important to be the people who elect representatives of us also know that we, the people, have a responsibility to correct, to protect, and to respect. Gracious God, in this place today, we are filled with many kinds of feelings about what will come next week. But one thing we know for sure is that we were called to be a community of all souls that says that everyone is invited, that allows us to open our arms and say, come with us, using the values of justice and equity and generosity and interdependence and pluralism and transformation. All of those values are important for us. So yes, our arms are outstretched to all who will come. It is not about parties. It is about being the best we can be for one another, because we can't be the best we can be until all of us are the best they can be. Keep us in a place that says, I love despite. I love despite. Keep us in that place of love that will make us full of the vigor that is needed to quench our thirst for justice. Keep us in this place, we pray, in your holy name. Amen. Blessed be. Ashe. May it be so.
When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Sing it with me now. When I breathe in, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. When I breathe in, when I breathe, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love. Just take a moment and go ahead and just slowly breathe in and breathe out. Find your breath. And know in this moment that you are loved and you are surrounded by love. All is well. All is well. Just once more, your voices when I breathe in. When I breathe, I breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I breathe out love.
Thank you, David. I wanted to let you know that I accidentally left our accompanist's name out of the order of service. Catherine Thomas, thank you for this morning. We appreciate it. And don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you've got till it's gone? Joni Mitchell had those thoughts and created a most beloved and classic song in 1970. And if you're familiar with the original recording, this is not what you're going to hear this morning. In an arrangement by Adam Podd, Director of Music at First Unitarian Congregational Society in Brooklyn, here is a fresh look at this classic song.
prophetic words from Joni Mitchell and Rick Fortner and our chamber choir. I needed to hear that this morning. I could tell that our nervous systems have calmed down a little bit since coming in this morning. I know with all the election anxiety and the tornado siren anxiety and all the other things going on in our lives, there's just a lot in the air. And the poet Rumi said, "Fear is the cheapest room in the house. I'd like to see you in better living conditions." Now, I don't know about you, but to me, it feels like our whole country is on edge. I'm on edge. Usually, when I have fears, they arise in the middle of the night. So I appreciated Shannon's story this morning about the worry dolls. I'm going to pick one up on my way out. I hope you will too. If you have some worries, I'm going to whisper into it and put it right under my pillow and see if it works. The wisdom of the Mayan peoples from Guatemala and Mexico. But when it's dark, in the night, that's usually when my fears and worries will come and meet me. When there's no visual distractions, it's too late to call anybody. I have nobody to talk to worry with. That's when it comes, and if I let it, it grows. The worries just sort of grow. It finds me there in bed staring into the void in a weakened state without my usual defenses. I'm a sitting duck. And as a kid, I used to be afraid of an alligator under my bed. Sometimes it was a gorilla. Do you remember what you were afraid of back when you were young? Today, the alligator is now fear of the future, fear for our democracy. I fear at other times that the world is on the brink, or that something's going to happen to my children or to my parents. Fear of a diagnosis, fear of losing my livelihood, fear of being able to support my family, losing my mind, fear of losing the fight against climate change, or a mass shooting, or fear of not being here anymore. Part of the human condition is that the future is uncertain. That's just the context in which we live. Christina Groff writes, "For many people, the most prominent motivating force in their life is fear. Many of us feel it daily. It may show up in small ways in our everyday lives. We feel afraid of failing at our job, or being abandoned in a relationship, or overwhelming anxiety may immobilize us as we consider our mortality, or fear of potential harm that could come to us through violence. We may feel a free-floating terror. We don't even know where it's coming from." So I'm going to talk about how we can respond in a healthy way to the fear and uncertainty that pervades our nation right now as the election for the U.S. presidency and local elections draw near. But it also applies to the general state of uncertainty and fear that's a common part of the human condition. Because the election will be over soon, but our fears will not go away. Before I jump into some of the ways that we can specifically respond, I want to state a bit about where we are. Because the first step in facing our fears and uncertainty is to acknowledge the situation that we're in. Author and civil rights advocate John Whitehead wrote, "We're being fed a constant diet of fear. Fear of terrorists, fear of illegal immigrants, fear of people who are too religious, fear of people who are not religious enough, fear of Muslims, fear of extremists, fear of the government, fear of those who fear the government." The list goes on and on. The strategy is simple yet effective. The best way to control a populace is through fear and discord. Fear makes people stupid. confound them, distract them with mindless news, chatter, and entertainment, pit them against one another by turning minor disagreements into major skirmishes, and tie them up in knots over matters lacking in real national significance. Most importantly, divide the people into factions, persuade them to see each other as the enemy, and keep them screaming at each other so that they drown out all other sound. In this way, they will never reach consensus about anything and will be too distracted to notice. And this is how free people enslave themselves and allow tyrants to prevail. Now, in religious history, there are lots of examples of one side or one religion fearing all others. Right? We don't have to look far. We could look to the Crusades, where Christians killed large numbers of Muslims and Jews in a mistaken idea that they did not just have a different worldview, but that believed that they had an evil worldview and they needed to be destroyed. Today, the same impulse in a less violent way causes people to cancel others. We can see the other side as so bad that they're not even worth listening to. But here's what I've learned from a leadership trainer that I've worked with over the years. His name is Rand Stagen. And he talks about the necessity of polarities. Light and dark, left and right, conservative and liberal or progressive, grievance and gratitude, cooperation and competition, thesis and antithesis. They need each other. And they exist in a dynamic tension with each other. So I want to focus today on the political polarization. I actually drew a cartoon. You know me, I like to draw cartoons. And if possible, you can see it up there. It says, America on Edge. And for those who can't see it, it has one person in a red MAGA hat and another person in a camouflaged Kamala Harris Walls hat. And they're having a tug of war with an American flag on a plank on top of the Washington Monument. And the situation here is that if either one actually wins, they both fall over. This idea that half of the country is going to self-deport is ridiculous. We have to live together. We're going to have to make this work together, or it's not going to work for any of us. So I just wanted you to have that little visual as I tell the rest of this story. So each side, conservative, progressive, has both light and has its shadow. The problem is that when one side looks at the other, we look at the other's shadow only, and we ignore the light. So conservatives only focus, for example, on the progressives' shadow. And the progressives only focus on the conservatives' shadow. So if you watch Fox News, they highlight all the worst parts of the progressive politics or progressive agenda, and they'll exaggerate them. So if you watch Fox News, that's all you really know of or think of as the progressive politics. It's bad, it's dark, it's mistaken, it's crazy, it's dangerous. And the same thing happens if you watch MSNBC in reverse. Neither side spends time honestly considering the strengths of the other side. This makes us crazy because we go, no, it's true. I know it's true what I'm hearing. It's absolutely, I see it, it's true, but it's only a part of a larger story. So Rand Stagen summarizes the underlying values of each side, summarizing, the best of each side. The right primarily is motivated to preserve what is good about America, and the left primarily wants to fix what is wrong with America. Both impulses come from a valuable place. Both have something of value to add, but ultimately, we all want to preserve what's good with America, and we all want to fix what's wrong, The problem is that we disagree about the details. The devil is definitely in the details. But if we're going to find a higher ground in which we can all stand together as Americans, or stand together as members of one church community, or of one neighborhood, or of one family, rather than break apart into enemy camps, we need to be willing to see not only the shadow of the other side, but also its light. And we need to be able to be honest about the shadow of our own side. Otherwise, we mistakenly believe that the other side has no light and we have no shadow. And then the other side can only be converted or canceled or destroyed. And then we will continue to live in fear of one another. Now, I believe there's a way that we can stand on our own convictions and advocate for our own values vigorously without making the other side into a demon or a caricature. Conservative politicians have been winning elections all over the world by speaking to people's fears, especially the fear that changes of modern society are eliminating the old way of life that many people love. Our societies are changing so rapidly, and so many people are understandably, they fear the changes and the unknown and the uncertainty of what is happening and what it's going to mean and what it's going to do. People feel lost, they feel left behind, and they long for what they remember as a simpler and better times. Now, according to commentator Fareed Zakaria in his latest book, Age of Revolutions, some scholars have found that underneath much of the populist rage in the West lie fears among an older, whiter population of a looming demographic transformation of the country, a quote-unquote great replacement. Many of our recent demagogues have used rhetoric and advocated policies that exploit these anxieties and fears. But, he says, it would be a mistake to explain all of such reactions as merely racism. There is a broader uneasiness about a changing world, a loss of certainty, and a collapse of community. The malaise requires serious thought and response. Even among white working-class Americans, there's a feeling of alienation. He goes on, in a 2016 survey, nearly half of them agreed with the statement, "Things have changed so much that I often feel like a stranger in my own country." Now, when you have millions of people saying that they feel like a stranger in their own country, you need to take it seriously. Right or wrong, these people fear that the pace of change and the kinds of changes that we're experiencing are leading to a loss of what they believe is good about America. Now, you and I may have a different experience of the changes, but it doesn't discount the way that these people feel. And it won't go away by canceling them or by calling them racist. And it won't go away due to an election, regardless of who wins. If we don't deal with these feelings in our fellow citizens constructively and honestly, it will tear us apart. But many progressives will point only to the shadow of conservatism, the dark side of keeping things the way they were, is that the way things were, traditionally, were unarguably racist and sexist and homophobic. They will point to the fact that neo-Nazis and the modern KKK militias all support the Republican candidate. They will point to the threads of anti-intellectualism in the party. And for many of us, that's more than enough to cause us to not associate or support conservatism. And that is a very valid response. However, I got an amen corner up here. However, Reverend Davis, he's listening. If we stop there, we will stay divided. Instead, let us stay curious. Really wonder why your neighbor and coworker and relative is voting conservative if you're not. Because if you just assume that they are racist, sexist, or homophobic, and that's it, you could be right. But you could be wrong. And it is a dangerous idea to discount and dismiss half of the country. Now, I'm not trying to change the way a progressive votes, God forbid. I'm merely trying to change the way a progressive views conservatives, and I'm trying to do the same in reverse. Conservatives are wrong when they define everyone who votes Democratic as wanting socialism, open borders, lots of regulations, a weak military, as anti-capitalist, and as wanting to cancel anyone who doesn't agree with them. Are there factions in the progressive wing that advocate for these things? Sure, there are. But to define all progressives and progressivism by this is to miss many of the strengths and the values of liberalism and progressivism. I have some deep commitments. I refuse to fear half of the country. And I refuse to fear the future. Is that because there aren't bad and dangerous people? No. Is that because I expect the future will be all sunshine and rainbows? No. I reject these fears because they limit our ability to think clearly and to love fully. Parker Palmer wrote, "We have places of fear inside of us, but we have other places as well. Places with names like trust and hope and faith. We can choose to lead from one of those places, to stand on ground that is not riddled with the fault lines of fear. To move towards others from a place of promise instead of anxiety. As we stand in one of those places, fear may remain close at hand, and our spirits may still tremble, but now we stand on ground that will support us. Ground from which we can lead others towards being more trustworthy, more hopeful, more faithful in how we show up in the world." Now, hope has its place. But to me, what is stronger of these is trust and faith. Because hope is usually hope for something good to happen. But in this uncertain world of ours, everything that happens is not good. It's not going to be good. So I don't just live in hope of a positive future. I live with a trust and a faith that whatever happens next, that we have the love and the strength to make it through. I want to share a story from Rabbi David Volpe about a traveling rabbi minstrel named Shlomo Kalbach, who traveled through Eastern Europe after the collapse of the Soviet Union to sing and to pray and to dance with the Jews and to inspire them. Now, unlike many places that he visited, in one small town, the people closed their doors in his face. No one wanted to have anything to do with him, this cheerful, dancing rabbi. But there was one older man who greeted him with openness. Rabbi Kalbach told the man that he understood why the people in this town would meet him with anger and suspicion. They had suffered great devastation during the Holocaust and at the hands of the communists. But what he was curious about was why this man, among all the people in the town, was so welcoming and so loving. The man smiled and he explained, "I can tell you the exact moment when it happened." He said that he'd lived in this small town all of his life. And one night, when he was a young boy, before the First World War, there was a rumor of a pogrom coming to their town. Pogrom was, if you don't know, was when people would, because it was like the race massacre in Tulsa, when people would come into the town and just devastate, destroy, burn down the Jews' homes, synagogues, and kill them. So they were told that the Cossacks were coming to loot and pillage and destroy the town. And so all the children were gathered together and brought to the rabbi's home for protection. It was wintertime, and in every room in the rabbi's house, there were children sleeping on the floor. He remembered how the rabbi spent the entire night pacing back and forth. And the man could remember how he was pretending to sleep, curled up on the floor in the rabbi's study. But he was really cold and unable to sleep. The rabbi came up behind him, taking the cloak off of his shoulders, and he placed it over him. And he said, "Good child, sweet child." "You know," said the man to Rabbi Kalbach, "it's been 75 years since the rabbi spread his coat over me, but it still keeps me warm." Rabbi Volpe explained that in the midst of loss, in the cold night, with the threat of destruction hanging over everyone's head, the rabbi made a gesture of love. For the rest of the child's life, he was different, because he knew that fear and pain and even loss were real, but they were not all there is. Because he knew that we cannot escape change or trouble, but we can help each other keep warm. Whatever happens this week in the election and its aftermath, we will be here. All Souls has gathered a community of loving people for more than a century. People have been coming to this community to keep each other warm through the Depression, after Pearl Harbor, during World War II, Vietnam, the fight for civil rights, the LGBTQ rights, after 9/11, in the aftermath of the Oklahoma City bombing. I cannot tell you what's going to happen this week, but I can tell you that we will be here to support each other and to continue to advocate for the values that we stand for and that we care about in this world and in this city and in this nation. Here's a commitment that you can make no matter what. I was listening to a podcast, thank you, Kristen Cobble, who's one of our Everywhere members, sent me this podcast by Emil Handelsman called How My View Grew. And in it, he wrote, he said, "I'm going to do my best to stay in a constructive mood, avoiding despair, guilt, resentment, at least as a sustained mood." They're going to come. Those feelings are going to come. But when we recognize them, we have to recognize them, say, "Oh, okay, I recognize it. I allow it." We can't just push it away. It doesn't go away that way. You got to allow it. Say, "Okay, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling some anxiety. I'm feeling whatever it is, some despair." Allow it. Investigate a little bit. Where's that coming from? What's going on? Where's that in my body? Where am I feeling that? What is? Oh, it's about the election. It's about my marriage. It's about this. It's about that. And then nurture yourself. Take care of yourself. Do what you do, whether it's breathing, yoga, taking a jog, whatever you do, doing some art. Do the thing that you do that nurtures yourself so that it doesn't become a sustained mood, because moods are contagious. And so your not being there helps your children and our children and your grandchildren and your neighbors and your coworkers and the rest of us to feel better. And then, secondly, use your strengths to be helpful to others. All of us have strengths in this moment. Again, no matter what comes. Figuring out, how do I lean into my strengths in this moment to be beneficial to my community, to my workplace, to my school, to my neighborhood, to my church. I want us to work to find a higher ground like Rand Stagen talks about, so that we can see both the light and the shadow, so that we can find some balance in our own relationship with the polarities that exist in our world, so that we can have a healthier relationship. As my colleague Wayne Arneson said, the way is often hard, the path is never clear, and the stakes are very high. Take courage, for deep down there is another truth. You are not alone. I love you. Be sure to vote. Amen.
One of my favorite hymns is number 318. And David and I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together hymn number 318.
Please be seated. I know we're running a little long, but we're going to take up an offering for a very important organization. As far as announcements, everything's printed here in your program. There's some great stuff coming up today, as well as throughout the week and in the next couple weeks. So please take this home with you. You also have in here the thanks to all of our gala sponsors. We had the most successful gala we've ever had. I think, yes, amazing. Preliminary totals show a gross of $150,000 was raised. It's amazing. So thank you to everybody who helped out, that you gave items to the auction, you came, you showed up, you did whatever you could to publicize. I want to lift up three special people, really four, because they're everywhere members, and they actually made the auction happen. They were the leaders of this auction. The head of the auction is Jenny Halliday, she lives in Houston. Jenny lives in Houston, although she has an apartment here in Tulsa now, and we're hoping that maybe she'll be living here more. We'll see. Of course, you met Pauline, who came to us from Annapolis, Maryland. Jeannie Lee is from Minnesota, so up north, Jeannie Lee. And she's such a big help, and with us today and the gala. And Jeannie Lee's also on our board of trustees, so she's our first everywhere member on our board of trustees, so we appreciate that. And then also from California, Kristen Cobble, everywhere member, is here. She grew up in All Souls and gave a wonderful item that went for a lot of money last night, and we're just so thankful to you and David for all of that. And let's see. I also just want to thank Phil Brubaker, who's, he's our staff person that made all this happen. But there's so many people to thank, Diane Rusher and so many others. So please look in here, and if you see any of these people, thank them for all that they did to make it a successful night. We're going to give our offering today. As you know, we give it away. We're giving it to Action, which you heard earlier because Christy lit our chalice. They have been holding accountability sessions with the mayoral candidates, the school board candidates, and other people throughout this year. The big action that's going to need to take place next is when they get elected to hold them accountable to what they told us that they were going to do when they got into office. So please give generously right now as we take up an offering for Action, which is a community organizing organization that helps us organize all of the religious community around Tulsa to push for a better world here in Tulsa. So let us now receive this morning's offering for Action. One thing special about last night is we honored Rick Fortner for 25 years of music in Austin. Hats off to Rick Fortner. And wow. Yes. Amazing. If you're here for the first time, as you leave, on the left in our Sonnen library, there'll be someone to greet you and answer questions that you might have. We have some refreshments there for everybody. Head into Emerson Hall. There's a bookstore. There's refreshments, a chance to meet some other people. If you're on Zoom, stay on Zoom. Make some friends. Reverend Randy's on Zoom with you today, and he'd love to talk to you and meet you. I know it's fun when I'm on there to meet some of our Everywhere members. As you go forth, again, wherever this week takes us, I will see you here next Sunday. Go and be blessed and be a blessing. Amen. All right, Reverend.